Is Max Verstappen back in the title race? My 3 takeaways from the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. What a great race. If you didn't get to see it, go back, watch the highlights. You missed a good one. Let's dive right into question number 1, which is Verstappen, and is he back in the title race? I heard from team principal Andrea Stella following this one. Refer to my notes that I've got beside me here. And he said that Verstappen is in contention for the Drivers' Championship title. I tend to agree with him on that front for sure. There is no question about it. Look, McLaren is worried about Red Bull Racing and Max Verstappen and what could potentially be. But let's just unpack this a little bit more. Where has all this pace from Red Bull really come from? Let's go back to the Hungarian Grand Prix weekend. That's a weekend where new boss, team principal, Laurent Mekies, who took over for Christian Horner, who was fired, he had the team really work on different setups throughout the weekend. So the team could experiment on the cars and get a better understanding for what were the strengths and what were the imperfections, imbalances of the RB21. And one of the things that this team has done so well since then is understanding the car and building out some components that have also helped them unlock potential from this race car as well. I want to stay on Mekies for just one more minute here, because I think for him, having the technical mind, the engineering background, I think that has really served this team greatly, because every time the drivers talk to him or tell him things that they want from the car, he listens. And for Mekies, what he's done since coming in is he's really placed a bigger emphasis on feedback from the drivers, taking that feedback, making sure the engineers are listening, understanding, and implementing what the drivers are telling them. Because at the moment, and before Hungary, a lot of it was done with simulation tools and relying too much on the simulation tools and not really accessing the drivers and what the drivers were feeling and what the drivers think that they should be changing on the cars. So fast forward from Hungary to Monza, the team introduces a revised floor to their car for the Italian Grand Prix. And Monza, the circuit itself, was supposed to be one of the weaker tracks for Red Bull Racing, when in fact, at the end of that weekend, that was probably one of their strongest tracks on the season so far. And a big part of that, I think, has to do with that revised floor that they have brought to this car. Even Andrea Stella felt that he has seen a huge change in their car since Monza, since the revised floor that Red Bull introduced. And I think also on top of all that is where we have to give Max Verstappen a lot of credit as well, because he had told the team in Monza a direction that he wanted to go in. It was setup, just trimming the car out. And by trimming the car out, though, it makes it a lot more difficult to handle. But for Max, it didn't. He kept pushing them in one direction, and that was the right direction to go in. And so that's the team listening to the driver. I think also when you take a look at the second seat, Yuki Tsunoda had a really great race on Sunday in Baku. I think when you see that the second driver in the second seat is starting to have success and getting the confidence, I mean, obviously they're not going to be on Max Verstappen's level, but when they get close, that I think also shows you that the car is heading in the right direction of being very, very competitive. Helmut Marko believed at the end of the Italian Grand Prix that the revised component to the car had finally unlocked the potential to succeed at other weaker circuits, because Monza was one of those. So when I was at the Italian Grand Prix, I was in conversation with some folks in the paddock about, Verstappen, and he was 94 points back in the championship, and some thought that he could actually fight for the driver's title. But for me, I didn't really see it that way. I felt that if he was able to get a DNF out of Piastri, then I thought that, it could be something that was in the window. Definitely a conversation for sure. Sure enough, on Sunday, Verstappen got what he needed. He got that DNF from Oscar Piastri. And when we take a look at how dominant Max was on Sunday, there was no way the McLarens, even if they were in the race and in a challenging position, still don't think they were going to be able to beat Max. The Singapore Grand Prix, that weekend for both McLaren and Red Bull is going to be a big one. If Red Bull is competitive in Singapore, which is a track that they have struggled at in recent memory for quite a few years. And so if Red Bull's able to be competitive in Singapore, then, look out, because anything is possible in this championship and in this season. Takeaway number 2. Is it bad luck, or is McLaren really feeling the pressure? I think it's a combination of both. I think it's a little bit of pressure, no question. I also think it's a bit of bad luck at the same time. Piastri did have an up and down weekend in Baku at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, and I think he could have had pole position on Saturday if he had have pieced together the lap that was there, because there was potential that was there, string together the lap, instead of crashing the car, which is exactly what happened. So Andrea Stella thinks that Piastri is going to bounce back from this. And I think from Stella's point of view, he has worked with a lot of great race car drivers in his day. He's been a part of some incredible driver-engineer relationships where drivers have gone on to win titles. And he seems to feel that Piastri is going to bounce back from this. And I can understand what he's saying, because when we've seen Piastri struggle, we've also always seen him the next race bounce back big time. But for me, when I look at a championship driver, that's not a normal mistake, and I don't think it's a normal mistake from Oscar Piastri either, which makes me think that he could be starting to feel the pressure here. Stella feels he's going to learn from this, bounce back, etc., but we'll see. The pit stop, however, that's a different sort of story. So the pit stop for Lando Norris in the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, it went really poorly. And that was very surprising given at how strong McLaren has been when it comes to pit stops so far this season. But this second one on Lando's car, if you go back to Monza, a one-off, sure, things happen, can understand it, but when you have it happen a second time, and also it being a front wheel gun as well, Stella felt that it was more hardware than it was operator. But I think when you take a look at this a little bit deeper, you have a driver who is able to take a big chunk out of his competitor's championship title. And I think those who work on Lando's car on that side of the garage, they obviously are very competitive and they want to see him do that. And you know what? Nerves happen. Maybe that is some pressure playing into the team a little bit. But then again, you have to go and you think, okay, so if the front tire doesn't go on properly, does Lando get out in front of Liam Lawson, Yuki Tsunoda, Charles Leclerc? Some feel that he wouldn't have. I tend to think that I think he would have been somewhere in the middle, and then maybe he would have been able to battle for that P5. I don't I don't think he would have came out directly in front of Liam Lawson. I mean, maybe if it was like a rocket of a pit stop, but I think there's a little bit of give and take in there as to where Lando would have filtered out from that pit stop, for sure. I think also when you take a deeper look at it again, it's a tough one, right? If you're Lando Norris and you have to go through that for a second time, you've only been able to take about 6 points out of your competitor in Oscar Piastri. And also when you take a look at the car, I don't know if McLaren gave Lando the best car he could have had for race conditions. Because if you look at Liam Lawson, how quick he was in a straight line, you could see that the McLaren traveling behind Yuki Tsunoda was having trouble making a pass and pulling it off. It just turned into a DRS train. I think what happens there is maybe should have taken a bit more risk and thought about trimming a little more wing off the car, get a bit more of the downforce off. So in race conditions, the car would have been faster in a straight line, something similar to like what Max Verstappen had done with their car as well. And so when you look back of it, all of these different sort of things, some of it a little bit of bad luck, but also I think some of it a little bit of pressure in there as well. Maybe being a little too conservative with the race setup, and maybe they should have thought of it being a little more aggressive. Just a few things to think about though as we move forward and see what McLaren does and see where they go from here. Takeaway number 3 has to be Carlos Sainz. He has the biggest moment at Williams. It was a smooth operation from the smooth operator himself on Sunday, Carlos Sainz. Williams' last podium. That's got to be 2021. Spa, so Belgian Grand Prix, and that was George Russell driving. Funny enough, George Russell is the one who finished in front of Carlos Sainz on Sunday, but it was a mixed weekend. I think for Williams, I think they believed they had a lot of pace in the car. I don't know if they really knew where they were going to come out in this one at all, but I think on Saturday, their simulation was telling them, without Lando Norris, without Oscar Piastri, and without Charles Leclerc in the mix there, that P2, P3 was possible for Carlos Sainz in qualifying. And Carlos put the lap together that he needed to get the car where it ended up being. So he did his job, no questions asked. I think the team felt that, though, coming into the weekend, same with Carlos, potentially a top 5 car when you look at it in terms of scoring points over the weekend and everyone else is involved. And if they did everything just right, maybe a top 5, not a podium. Same with Carlos. That's what he actually had explained to the media on Sunday, was the fact that didn't feel a podium was in their future. However, I don't expect this to be commonplace for Williams. I do believe, though, it is a moment for this team, a moment that they haven't had in a really long time. They're doing a lot of work behind the scenes. And that has to go down to James Vowles, and what a great job Vowles has done with this team behind the scenes with the systems, also with the team collaboration, getting a decent car to the track as well, and also bringing in Carlos Sainz. This is a driver that James Vowles had tried to get on this team for quite a while, and he was successful at doing it and selling his vision to Carlos Sainz and bringing him over to the team. And I think for Carlos, when you're replaced, by a driver who, when Carlos was at Ferrari, when you were replaced by the likes of Lewis Hamilton, and you're able to get a podium before Lewis is able to get a podium with Ferrari, I think for Carlos, that probably makes him feel really good. He probably feels like he's got a chip on his shoulder now, thinking about it. But for Lewis, the season's not over, and I still feel that there is a podium in his future with Ferrari sometime this season. He did look a lot more comfortable this weekend. I think if they could figure out for Lewis what went so well for them on the Friday in FP2, then I think they're going to be off to the races for sure. As for Williams' future, though, and you look forward to 2026, this is something that this team has been building towards. It's the 2026 regulation. And they've invested a lot of time and money. They've sacrificed a lot for it as well. This is why they've got Alex Albon. This is why they've got Carlos Sainz there to help them really capitalize on this rules and regulation change that is going to be coming in for 2026. They're off to a good start from this weekend. They're going to take a lot of momentum from this, a lot of positivity from it, because their systems and everything seem to have worked out just the way they thought they were going to, and that's going to be important for 2026. We've got the Singapore Grand Prix coming up in a few weeks' time. It's going to be a big race weekend for McLaren. It's going to be a huge race weekend for Red Bull Racing and Max Verstappen, and we'll have more for you here on TSN during the Singapore Grand Prix weekend.